Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to Girl Change Your Clothes. And today we're coming to you with another great topic. And today we're going to be discussing reflective listening. So you might want to know, what is reflective listening? You ask, and it's communicating by providing reassurance in your expression and your thought, reflecting back to this person that you're speaking to what has been heard. You're building greater awareness, restating important thoughts, and exercising caution. We're going to dive deeper today into how we can implement this needed skill in our everyday lives, with our family, with our friends, with clients, with all the people that we encounter daily. What mistakes have we made, and how we can try to start training ourselves to be better in our communication with others. So welcome, Denise and Jamie. What are your thoughts about reflective listening?
Hello, hello.
Hi, Jamie.
Hey, Shelly, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hi, Denise.
Hey, Shirley and Jamie, what's up, y'all?
Hey,
So
what's
glad to
up?
have
What's
you
up?
back. So we want to talk about reflective listening today. You guys have any thoughts?
Um, Actually, when I think about reflective listening, it's vital in every format and fashion of our communication process. Whether, like you said, it's at work, whether it's at church with your husband, your children. Reflective. When I think of reflective, I think of a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Reflective is something that is mirrored back, the sounds, the wording, the verbiage, the thoughts, the emotions. There was a time when George and I, we did like an exercise. Um, and because I would send him to the store and I would say, George, can you go get some milk? And he would go to the store and purchase some milk. But then when he would bring the milk home, it would be the wrong milk. And I would be like, that's not the milk that I wanted. He would say, well, you just said go get some milk. So when we speak, we have to actually be specific in speaking. We have to be detailed. And then it's so important that we repeat back what the other person has said so we can get a clear understanding of what they are referencing. So from from after the 10th time of him going to the store, and bringing back the wrong thing, I was like, okay, can you go and pick up some vitamin D milk? And he would say, okay, you want me to pick up some vitamin D milk? I say, yes. And then it's so funny because now when he go to the store, once he's in the store, he'll call me. I'm here. Now, are you sure you want the vitamin D milk? Are you sure, this is it, what you want me to get? So reflective listening is betraying what you're saying to the person, and then you as a listener understanding, repeat it back so you can get a clear understanding, have some type of dialogue between, each
Yes.
other so you all can understand and grasp what the other person is saying. Because a lot of times we listen, but we don't hear, we just grab it and we run with
Right.
it. We grab it and we run with it. But we really have to be intentional about understanding what they want for us to do.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. Denise, what you're saying, when you hear something, the hearing refers to the sound that enters your ears. That's just the sound. Listening is not the same. Listening requires more focus, concentration, both mental and physical, because you're truly trying to seek to genuinely understand what the other person is saying or how they're feeling. So I agree with what you're saying. I think that that's a great point that you bring up. Um, Jamie, did you want to share anything else too?
Well, hey, everybody. And I wanted to say, I think listening is such an important part of, no, of just our lives, like regular lives, of our everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
We have to listen to be able to communicate with, whether it's your husband, whether it's communicating with your kids, with your friends, with your neighbor. And we have to learn how to activate the listening skills. And I think listening could be okay, I can listen, my ears are working, but another thing is understanding, communicating, getting to understand what the other person is saying. So
Right.
that is the part that we need to work on, paying attention. I think it's related. When we're talking about reflective listening, it's paying attention. Being, again, I go with my word, being intentional about paying attention to what the other person is saying. Because
Yes.
when we don't pay attention properly, or we're not taking the time to listen to what the other person is saying, we can go into real bad situations and misunderstandings. And I think our
Yes.
listeners, our listeners that are listening right now, they can relate to what I'm saying, because we can get into big arguments just for not taking the time to listen, do reflective listening. Because Shelly can
Yes.
be talking to me, Denise can be talking to me, but my mind could be somewhere else. So
Right.
all I hear is jada, 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 jada. Like, I think Pastor was saying last night, it's like a good Charlie Brown movie. You just hear blah, blah, blah,
Uh-huh.
blah, 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 blah. But
Mm-hmm.
you're not really understanding, taking the time to understand the details of what the other person is saying. So I will say, yes, we need to be more intentional by listening to when everybody else is talking to us. Listen to the details, instructions. That person is giving us instructions. Let's pay attention to what the other person is saying. So I think
Absolutely.
that's one of, and again, it's connecting with the other person. It's having that connection, because you can communicate, you can talk, but if we don't connect, then there's a problem right there, because we're not
Right.
getting what the other person is saying.
Right. It's so true. It's so true. I started to look up some things, and there's actually a little website called skillsyouneed.com. So funny. And I found that it says listening is an action. It is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. And that is so true. Like, you really have to sit there and listen to what the person is saying, and how we receive it and interpret the message is so vital. And that's the thing, in marriages, in siblings, any relationship, when we say, okay, you hear the person speaking, but now to repeat what they're saying, instead of you already interpret it and then you respond to that, we should try to practice to say, this is what I hear you saying. And you repeat it back to them, whatever it is that you hear them saying. And then when you do that, they can say yes or no. No, that is not what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Or they can explain what they're saying. So this way you have a clarity on that specific statement before you even proceed to any other thoughts in your communication. Because what happens is, when you receive that information and you interpret it in your own way, then you're thinking, this is what this person is saying to me. This is how I perceive it. But the person is trying to convey something else, and you misread them. And so that's where conflicts can come in. So when we're doing that, it's something that we should put into practice to make sure that we repeat what the person, how we receive what they're saying, so that they can make any corrections to the clarity of what was meant, And then when I looked up the word reflect, it means to think deeply and carefully about. That's what it is. Like, you want to really, reflecting like a mirror, like Denise mentioned earlier, is also another aspect of it. So when we think about what people are saying to us, let's try to practice that, to really sit there and think, okay, what did I just hear them say? And then you repeat back. So, Jamie, this is what you said, blah, 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 whatever. And then she can say to me, oh, no, Shelly, what I meant was this, or whatever it is. And somehow we can get to a place of understanding among the conversation. And if that is not being explored in a good way, then maybe having another person come in and help to the communication. That's why people go to counseling, so that you can get that breakdown and those barriers and those offenses or whatever it is. Sometimes we build up a wall and a guard because of hurts in the past, or bad communication skills that we've learned from our parents or whoever we were raised by. And so we have to undo those things, which is a process. It takes time for us to do that. So we just have to try to be careful and be mindful that listening is not trying to be right. It's not trying to prove a point. It's not having the last word. I think a lot of us try to do that. We would just want to get our information in. We want to make our point. We want to say we want to say, and let that person know this is what I'm trying to say to you. But if we want to be reflective about it, we really need to consider what that person is feeling, thinking, and be mindful of them. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. It's a skill that we all need, but it takes work and effort. And I think we could be better. All of us can be better at this, Denise?
Yes, I think with reflective listening, when you are sitting, having a conversation with someone, it's so important, like you were saying earlier, is to suspend judgment and keep the focus on understanding. We can't reflect on the wrongness of what they're saying. And because, if we do reflect on the wrongness of what they're saying, judgmental blocks are posted up. And so what we have to do, I call them power phrases. We have to come up with different phrases like, okay, tell me more, help me to better understand what you're
Yes.
trying to say. Instead of, I can't believe you did that, or no, that's not the way it was, or whatever. No, you're misunderstanding. That's not what I said. We have to really be intentional not to judge and to focus on the understanding. And we always have to be prepared to have like neutral phrases to use. That way tension won't arise. We have to go in without having sentences. Sometimes sentences made up in our head. Sometimes we can go in with a preceded
Right.
notion of what is actually happening or what's getting ready to happen. And so if a person says something you have an opinion about, you are prepared. Mirroring phrases already have mirroring phrases prepared. They will help you resist injecting judgment. Practice several phrases in advance. Say, I want to hear what you have to say now, or I didn't know you felt that way, or I see why that would be an issue for you, or I can imagine how that might have felt. And don't say you're overreacting. It's just like we got to be careful that we don't send out trigger points to
Right.
stop the communication and to stop the whole purpose of the conversation that you're having. The conversation is for a reason. So you want to get an understanding so you can be able to come up with techniques to move forward or learn or grow from the conversation that you're having.
Right. Denise, the funny thing is those phrases that you're talking about is actually a term in counseling, and they're called encouragers.
Oh, okay.
And it encourages people
different
to
people
communicate.
have different phrases for it.
So,
yeah.
Yep, that's what they're called.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Jamie?
Well, I'm telling you, girls, you're putting all your knowledge out there to our listeners. And you know what? Take pen and paper. That's what I will recommend. This episode is so good. And I think when we learn to communicate, when we learn to listen, we cut so many issues in our lives. So a few tips that I can give, and you guys touch base on many of those. But take pen and paper. And one of the main things that I think we need to do is when we're talking with somebody, make sure that we do eye contact, that we look at them in the eyes. Because if you're speaking with somebody and you are distracted looking at something else, and I know it happens, we are humans and we're surrounded by many things happening around us. But if we're having a conversation with someone, let's try to give the respect and the attention to look at them in the eyes, to have a face-to-face contact. And I think that will help us to be more attentive to what the other person is saying. The other thing is be relaxed, show that in your expression, by being relaxed, by showing that you're And yes, that you're actually paying attention, that your full attention in that person is in that person, that you're present. So that is very important. And be ready to uh, give a response based on what you're listening, not what you are assuming. Because a lot of times we are listening to what the other person is saying, but we're making our own thinking and our own misunderstandings, and we are actually assuming. So, what you guys
Right.
mentioned earlier about coming back with a question, is this what you mean to say? Is this what you're saying? That is such a
Right.
great advice. And let's put it out there for parents, for wives, for husbands, even for leaders, at their work
Yeah.
environment. When you have
Yeah.
employees under you, make sure that if you give an instruction or to your kids or whoever, make sure that you even take the time to ask them back again. Okay, what is it that I said? Can you repeat to me the instructions that I just gave you? So when we do that, we are making sure that the other person is also listening attentively. So if you notice that you're talking to somebody and you see that person distracted, you can help that person to listen, and apply listening skills by asking them, what is that what I said? If you think that whatever you said is not clear, ask the question, what did I say? Why did did you understand? So by that, we help them also to listen better.
Yes. Absolutely.
And the and I think the other thing is, and I think a lot of us struggle with this when we're trying to make our point across, and it's interrupting when we're having a conversation, especially if that conversation is getting out of the nice side of it. We get into this thing that we interrupt, and we're talking and we're making sure
Sounds
that
like
the other
Denise has
person.
feels some type of way. She's over there sighing.
Oh, I think we all have
Oh,
gone through
yes.
this. I
Yes.
think we all have dealt with this with our husbands, with our kids, with our
Mhm.
friends. I think when we're
Mhm.
trying to make a point across, we interrupt, and we don't let the other person speak. So
Yeah.
reflective listening, and I love this because my friend Denise, when I say that word, my friend Denise comes into my vision. Girls, reflective listening. Because us, I mean, this is real, and we're being transparent with our listeners. Shelly, Denise, and I, there has been moments that we don't listen to each other. I mean, let's be honest, we don't. And we have gotten into arguments, and no, I said this, and then, you say this, and it's like we're not listening to each other. And our
Mhm.
friend Denise actually did that with us, with Shelly and I, and she did, girls, reflective listening. So so when I hear that, it's like something that's stuck in my mind. And you know what? That moment, even though it was so uncomfortable for me, it's a moment that is stuck in my head now, because every time that I'm probably doing that to somebody else, Denise is gonna come on the right side of my shoulder saying, Jamie, reflected listening. So I hope that you guys can apply the advice that we're giving you, that you can take it, to real life, and you can apply it, and hopefully that will help you to make your life a little bit easier. Yes, Shelly.
Yes, definitely, definitely. This is really great, great content, great information, Jamie. Tips and just so helpful. A couple other things, and you did touch on some of this just now when you were speaking. I wrote down some communication skills that we need to have in the reflective listening. Is that we need to be aware of our body language, like you mentioned, and eye contact, which is amazing. We definitely have to have that. But our facial expressions,
Mm-hmm.
how our facial
Mm-hmm.
expressions are speaks volumes. You don't have to say one word, but you are communicating through those facial
With your
expressions.
eyes.
Yes. Or if you're not looking at the person, you turn away or you make a little frown with your mouth or whatever. Those are facial expressions are speaking. They're communicating. It's a whole part of the reflective listening and communication process. When you are speaking, making the right choice for your words is so vital also. Choosing the right words that are not attacking, that are pleasant, that are making the person feel like you're really understanding where they're coming from and not charging after them. And I know we all have to work on this. So I admit I got to work on it too, so it's day by day, moment by moment, with my kids, with my husband, with you all. It's a choice that we have to make and say, okay, you know what? I want to be better in this area. And lastly, the one other thing that I was thinking of is our tone of voice, the way we say it, the tone that we speak in. Cause you can say, hello, how are you today? You can say, hello, how are you? Like you can say words in a different
like
tone,
that.
a different way,
Mm-hmm.
and make it sound totally different. And that's why when you're texting people, you don't know what in the world, how some things came across, and you can read into that. We got to do another segment on that by itself because that's a whole other topic. But it's so vital to know the tone of voice that someone is saying something in and how it's perceived in that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's all
You
I
know
had
what?
to
It's so
share.
interesting that you said that with the tone of voice and everything that everyone has been sharing about listening. I am reflected back to our prayer time. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we go in um, and we're in there just telling God what we want, just talking, 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 talking. Um, but communication is a two-way conversation. And so if you're
Yes.
always talking, you're not able to
You can't
hear
hear.
what
That's
God
right.
is saying. So if you're always talking, when you're in communication with your friends, your spouse, you're not hearing what they're trying to say. And it sounds like gibberish, want, 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 and
Mm-hmm.
nothing is being accomplished. And I think about, like, there's a scripture in the Bible, wherefore my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear,
Mm.
slow to speak, and slow to wrath.
Amen.
Um, and when I think of that, I think of when I was a child, my mom used to say, God gave you two ears and one mouth so you can listen more
I like that.
That
Hmm.
is good.
instead of speaking. Just if we just hone in to listening and trying to understand that other person perspective and not be defensive. We can grow
Right.
as individuals. We can learn so much more and we can alleviate so much stress, so much tension, so much discord, so many different issues if we just learn to listen. And at that time, when the person is speaking with you and sharing with them how they feel, if you do not agree with them, if you do not have some positive feedback, just say, I understand that's how you feel, and don't give your feedback at that time. If you have to take a moment, maybe an hour or the next day, so you won't come in just with your own perspective of what's going on, take a moment. Take a moment. You
Yeah.
don't have to speak, but acknowledge their feelings and their thoughts and their
Right.
emotions.
That's good.
Well, girls, I think today's episode is going to be helping so many out there, including us, because it's like before we talk to you guys, to the listeners, we're talking to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and this has helped me and reinforce the listening skills, because that's what listening is. I think listening, over the experiences that I go through, that I had gone in life, I realized that listening, it's a skill. We're not born with it. I mean, we're born with the sense of listening, but listening goes beyond. It goes further. And we need to practice it. We need to make it better, because it's an art, and it's a skill that we need to practice. And when we listen, we show respect to others.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
we definitely do. I think
Yes.
that's a way that
Yes.
we can show respect to the other person. It's by listening, and we need to learn it. If we don't know, and we're the type of person that we like to interrupt, that we like to speak all the time and always be right and make our point all the time, then we need to stop. We need to stop, make a stop in life, and say, I need to change, and it's out of my comfort zone. I've been like this all my life. How do I do it? Well, remember that listening is an art and it's a skill that you can learn.
Mhm.
We all can learn from that. So, how do I change my clothes before we start wrapping up today's episode? I choose to stay quiet in the middle of an argument. If I'm having an argument with somebody, I choose to stay quiet if I have to. I choose to ask questions if I have to. Is this what you meant to say? Let me rephrase what I heard. Is that what you really meant to say? If it's something that offended you, if it's something that maybe hurt you, it's always good to go back and ask questions. I choose to look at the other person in the eyes and give my attention. That's how I'm changing my clothes in terms of listening, reflective listening. It's not always easy to do it. Not doing the right thing is not always easy, but is the best thing. So I think by choosing to do that, like Denise said, our days are going to go smooth and without trouble. At least we're going to be staying out of trouble by doing that. And there is a Bible verse that I wanted to share with all of you, and it's in Proverbs 18:13, and it says, "To answer before listening, that is folly and shame." I don't want to be folly. I don't want to be in shame. I want to do the right thing. I want to be the person that gives the respect to who do is. So, to you, my listeners, thank you for listening to us. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Denise, for sharing with us such great tips. And I hope that you all took pen and paper and that you were able to learn from today's episode. In the meantime, remember, we are on social media, on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, and remember to share with your friends and family. But for today, that's it. Thank you so much for being with us. Bye, girls.
Bye.
Bye bye.